How many of you guys read What Nerd? I'll give you a minute to think about it. I had never heard of this website before, but then somebody DM'd me a link to this article on Twitter, which, side note, if you have stuff you want me to take a look at and to respond to, DM me on Twitter. My DMs are open, and I love when you guys send me stuff because it makes my job a lot easier. I can, get content out a lot faster. But this is my first impression of What Nerd. This article right here. Why I quit PC gaming. 5 reasons I'm not a PC gamer anymore. For a lot of gamers, PC gaming is the epitome of the hobby. I'm done with PC gaming culture, and here are my reasons why. It's always interesting to me when people talk about PC gaming culture. Like, is there really a PC gaming culture? Because I don't think so. One of the main appeals of playing on PC is the fact that there isn't any one specific way to do it. So that being said, is there really a PC gaming culture? I just don't think there is. Spend enough time in online gaming circles and you'll eventually run into an utterly cringeworthy term, PC Master Race. The PCMR crowd asserts that no matter what gaming console you use, you're doing it wrong. PC gaming is the only way to go. Now let's make an important distinction here. PC Master Race is a general term for the most enthusiastic of PC gamers. What you are describing are fanboys. And yes, we have them too. The PC crowd has them too. One of the main traits of the PC Master Race, and you'll see this if you go to the subreddit, like seriously, go to the PC Master Race subreddit, you'll see what I'm about to say. One of the main traits of the whole PCMR thing is the fact that we don't have any specific way of doing things. We just talk about our hobby, we talk about the games, we talk about the hardware, and we try to encourage people to come to our side. Because no, PC gaming isn't the only way to go, but we believe it is the best way to go, because all the stats are on our side. Though I've always despised that term, for many years I was a PC first gamer. Which is an interesting thing to say right here, because now you're implying that being a PC first gamer lumps you into the whole toxic PC's the only way to go crowd. I don't know if that was intentional, but given the rest of the things said in this article, I wouldn't put it past you. I had a few gaming consoles to play exclusives, but if it was available on PC, that's usually where I played it. But not anymore. I've quit PC gaming, and here's why. And honestly, I'm so excited to hear these reasons. I love articles like this. Sometimes when it's, been a slow week for content, and like last few videos I bulk recorded a few weeks ago. I haven't recorded a video in like a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's just hasn't been a lot to talk about, but I feel like this is gonna get us back on track. Number 1, moving hardware goalposts. This is a PC thing, apparently. If you've ever built a gaming PC, you know the process. You spend weeks poring over benchmarks, planning the build, and buying the parts. After everything arrives, you put it together, fire it up, and hope everything actually works. After installing Windows, you install a few of your favorite games, or maybe buy new ones. It screams, this is the fastest computer you've ever had. It's the perfect gaming machine. And let's rewind here a little bit. You spend weeks poring over benchmarks and planning the build. Weeks. Try 30 minutes. If you're trying to build a PC and you need to research benchmarks, that will be done in an afternoon. And also, why'd you separate poring over benchmarks and planning the build? Are those not the same thing? For a few months. Eventually, new CPUs and GPUs arrive on the scene, and you notice your PC no longer matches or exceeds the recommended specs for newer games. It's all downhill from there. Month after month, your computer only looks worse and worse. Sure, you don't need a cutting-edge system to enjoy PC games. Okay, you just made everything you just said irrelevant. Especially if you're a patient gamer. What's wrong with being patient? But that nagging feeling of an inadequate PC will always be there. It's hard to escape. Right off the bat, I am completely confident you were never a PC gamer, because this is wildly inaccurate. This is one of the biggest misconceptions that people on the outside looking in have about the PC platform. You do not need constant upgrades. You do not need all the new hardware. The only people who are constantly upgrading their hardware are the ones who go low with their initial purchase. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with going low with your initial PC if you want to go with a budget PC. Just, that is something you have to anticipate. If you buy a budget PC, and I'm talking really budget, then yeah, you might want to upgrade a little later if you want to run games at recommended specs. But also, recommended specs are not minimum specs, and recommended specs are also very subjective, because the recommended specs is shooting for a certain resolution, a certain frame rate, a certain graphical quality. All of these things you may not be looking for. I've said it a ton of times, but I was running a GTX 1070 up until a few months ago, and I was fine with it. And now I'm on a 2070, and I am fine with it. And going back to the budget thing, even being on a budget, even building a budget PC does not mean you'll have to upgrade it, because there are a lot of really great cards out there, a lot of really great pieces out there that are technically budget builds, and you'll be fine. It depends on the games you're playing, it depends on what you want from the machine, and it really just depends on how much you spend on the initial build. This is why I always say that with PC gaming, usually the initial purchase of the machine will be somewhat expensive, more expensive than a console, but the more money you initially spend on the machine, the more money you won't have to spend in the future. And then also you'll be saving money with the cheaper prices of games and whatnot. This just really bugs me, how you go from, eventually new CPUs and GPUs on the screen, your PC, like, you have to upgrade it. And then literally the next sentence, you say you don't need to do that. So why is it in the article? Not to mention that brand new hardware components depreciate insanely fast. No, they don't. The higher cards of the 20 series will get you better performance than the consoles. Like, the new consoles. Like, stop. You don't know what you're talking about. Today's cutting-edge PC can be built at a fraction of the price in 2 years. That's the premium you pay to be a frontline PC gamer, and I'm not willing to pay it anymore. With a gaming console, you pay your $500 up front and you're good to go for several years at least. Oh boy. To be a frontline PC gamer, again, you do not have to be constantly buying the best hardware ever. I also love this. With a gaming console, you pay your $500 up front and you're good to go for several years. No, you pay your $500 and that's the only option you have for several years. A lack of variety and a lack of options is not a good thing. It is a restriction. Okay, number 2, Halfhearted Ports. As you're holding up an Xbox One controller, can you taste the irony in the air around you? This is getting better these days. Okay, so why is it here? But for a long time, most game developers had a console-first approach with PC ports seemingly thrown together at the last minute. For a long time, so it's not here anymore. I hate this. Like, isn't that a logical fallacy? Like, arguing against somebody but using outdated information. Like, isn't that a fallacy? PC gamers have gotten plenty of great ports over the years, I'm not denying that. But even if a game runs fine on most PCs, ports usually have issues on some hardware configurations. And I'll say it again, the air quotes bad ports, 99.9% of the time, they're still running better than the console version. Like, that's the ultimate irony when you hear about how a PC port is like capped at 60, or a PC port has physics tied to frame rate. Like a bunch of dumb things that happen with PC ports now. And those things are unacceptable. I'm not excusing those things. Like, those things are absolutely legitimate criticisms. But even with those problems, the game runs better on PC. PC version's capped at 60. What's the console version capped at? PC version has physics tied to frame rate. Yeah, but how high does our frame rate go compared to yours? Also, we have mods that can do something about this. And I hate the whole notion of like, oh, mods can fix this thing, therefore it's not a problem. No, it's still a problem, but we have a solution. And that's just the nature of PC gaming. No, it's not. Developers simply can't test their games on every single combination of PC hardware on the market, especially legacy builds. 2 things. That's not the reason why some ports are bad, just in case your lack of knowledge wasn't already on display. And then especially legacy builds, but weren't you the one who just said PC gamers have to constantly be buying new hardware? If that were the case, why would you even bring up legacy builds? With gaming consoles, developers only need to test on 1, 2, or possibly 3 versions of the hardware. That makes it easier to ensure a great gaming experience for everyone. 1 to 3 versions of the hardware. Interesting. How many Xboxes are there right now? Console exclusives. There are many games that are PC only, particularly in the strategy game and indie game genres. Indie is not a genre, it's a descriptor, but yes, the indie marketplace is better on PC. But for a non-strategy gamer, the exclusives on a gaming console are usually more interesting than any PC exclusive. At least, that's what I've found to be true for me. Console gaming exclusives are the types of games I prefer, which, with how simply you seem to think about things, that makes total sense. If you play nothing but real-time strategy and point-and-click adventure games, the PC gaming landscape may have all you need. And now we're gonna run it back to me being absolutely confident you were never an actual PC gamer, because you're falling back on the whole, PC gaming, it's all just real-time strategy and point-and-click adventure games. Here are the most popular games on Steam. 1 Google search is all you had to do. But I like Mario games, and for that you'll need a Nintendo console. No, you don't. There's no way around it. Yes, there is. And there are so many great games on the Nintendo Switch, I can be a satisfied gamer without my PC. Because this former PC-first gamer thinks you can't play Nintendo games without a Nintendo console. Number 4, maintenance hassles. Again, with an Xbox One in the background. The irony floating around in the air has now congregated into a cumulonimbus. PCs can malfunction. Gaming consoles can malfunction. Any electronic device can run into issues and require troubleshooting. So why is this in an anti-PC article? But when a gaming console has issues, the manufacturer can guide you towards fixing it, or take it in and fix it themselves, or just replace it altogether. I've never had to reinstall the entire operating system of a gaming console just to get a game working. I've had to do that plenty of times with my PC though. Numero uno. The manufacturer will not guide you towards fixing it, they will guide you towards spending money on a new one. Number 2, when the console manufacturers take in your console and fix it themselves, 99% of the time, they're sending you a new one. Number 3, I've never had to reinstall my operating system for a game either. Like, never. I've never had to do that. Number 4, how many updates for console games have destroyed the console or bricked the console? Number 5, having one company tell you what can and cannot be done with your hardware is not a positive thing. And number 6, I've had to do that plenty of times with my PC. With all the things you've said in this article, I don't doubt that. For years, I've made a living as a tech writer. We live in an amazing time when people like this can make a living as a tech writer. If you ever wonder why I'm so hard on people like this, it's because I am a tech writer. I am a freelance tech and gaming writer. That is my job. I know how easy it is to be accurate about these things. That's why I'm so hard on people who just don't try. You have a job that so many people want, and this is the effort you're putting in. Yeah, I'm gonna be hard on you. After spending all week solving tech problems, the last thing I want to do in my free time is solve my own tech problems. And given that gaming PCs need to run Windows, they fucking literally do not. Like, are you lying about the tech writer thing, or are you actually that bad of a tech writer? And given that Windows is prone to all kinds of issues, you just said all technology is prone to issues. I just don't have the energy to deal with that anymore. Okay, go. Just go. If you don't understand these things, if you don't want to deal with these things, just go. Don't write a giant article just exposing how little you know about these things, because then your credibility is going with you. Number 5. I prefer Mac over Windows. Ladies and gentlemen, we found the problem. Despite everything I said above, I actually think Windows 10 is the best version of the operating system in a very long time. Depending on how far back we're going with a very long time, I guess I'll agree. I really like Windows 7, but you know. Recent updates have made it even better, and I have no doubt that it's only going to improve with every year. Sure. But when it comes to getting work done, I'm a Mac guy. Before that, I was a Linux guy. Neither are great for gaming. Fun fact, I actually began my whole PC gaming experience on a Mac. In 2015, I got my first MacBook. And this was before I was into PC gaming. That was my transition to PC gaming, like getting Steam on my MacBook and playing, you know, less demanding games like VVVVV, Counter-Strike, TF2. Like that was kind of what, kind of woke me up like, hey, this is kind of fun. These games are pretty fun. And then eventually I put the money into an actual gaming PC. I just give that little tangent because I think the whole like, don't play games on Mac, never play games on Mac. But like, if someone's on a Mac and they want to play games on Steam, let them. It's very likely that'll be their transition over to the actual PC gaming. That was just a little aside. I just can't use Windows as my primary OS. Because of this, a Windows PC has always been just a gaming PC for me. And it's hard to justify the cost of a PC that's basically a gaming PC console when I could just stick with an actual gaming console. Are you complaining about hardware prices? As a Mac guy, a Mac guy is complaining about hardware prices. I also think it's funny how you say like, oh, Windows is the best, like the current version of Windows is really good and it's just gonna keep getting better. Have you used the current version of the Mac OS? It's fucking horrendous. Like I had to replace my MacBook a few months ago. Like that 2015 MacBook that I was running up until a few months ago, I had to get it replaced with a new one. The Mac CPU, like Apple's custom CPU, it's fucking terrible. The current version of the Mac OS is fucking awful. I don't know what they did. It's slow, it's sluggish, it's crashy. I don't know what they did. Like my 2015 MacBook that I still have for like backup files and stuff, it runs shit better than the new one. Like what did you guys do? The absolute irony of you saying you prefer Apple to PC, which look, for just general computer purposes, I can see that side. If we're just talking about the average Mac's functionality versus the average PC's functionality for non-gaming purposes, I can totally see why people prefer Mac. I can totally see it. But that's not what we're talking about here. And yet you're trying to make that what we're talking about here. And you're just making yourself sound worse. Oh my God, like it's no coincidence that the people who talk about how like, oh, Consoles are they're just so much better than PC now. When you ask them to elaborate what they mean, all of them have reasoning like this. That just screams they haven't actually tried to enjoy PC gaming. Or if they did, they had like very obvious problems they just made no effort to solve. Almost every justification you gave in this video is factually wrong. I don't know much about this website. It's called What Nerd. I had to check because I honestly forgot. I'm not familiar with this website, but now I'm keeping an eye on it because holy cow, if this is the like the caliber that we're dealing with, whoa, I have a new favorite website now. Toodles.